Hello, welcome back to the show. Appreciate everybody listening in and all your wonderful comments. I always say that because I really am truly appreciative of the comments and the feedback, and that allows us to keep finding great guests in the directions that you want to see and hear things. So, it's interesting. I've listened to music my entire life. I remember, I don't know, I was probably 5, 6 years old. I had an 8-track player. And yes, that dates me because that puts me in the smack dab in the middle of the 70s. And I remember getting the Beach Boys 8-track tape, a Van Halen, and then eventually I got a Black Sabbath. And God, I just remember playing that thing over and over and over again and skipping tracks and everything I can do. And then just music kind of evolved from there. And my family always laughs at me because I always have music on. If I walk outside to feed the animals, I bring the stereo with me and the power button goes on. And, this guest, I saw the PR blast come through. And I thought, this guy's all about music and moods and changing our lives. And I thought, I've got to have Wayne Altman on today. So, Wayne, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim. You saying that when you started naming the 8 tracks, I was like, what is going on? Because Beach Boys, Endless Summer, what my brothers, I had 2 brothers, they were just furious at me because I would jam that Endless Summer into the 8 track and I would listen to it all night long. I know that thing front and back until they broke it.
It was the first one I had. I think my mom probably got it for me because she thought it was semi-harmless. I don't know how the Van Halen showed up, but I loved it. Van Halen 1 and 2, and then I got Black Sabbath, and those were the 8 tracks I played every day, all day. I was outside tinkering away with wood, hammer, and nails,
My family, you talk about listening to music all the time. My family, I've got my wife and 3 girls, and I've lost a lot of my hearing from being in the military, but so I'm always blasting the music in the car, blasting the music when I'm taking a shower, whatever. So they get kind of frustrated with me too about that. They say it's my soundtrack. Dad's got a soundtrack everywhere he goes.
Yeah. Well, right now my soundtrack's Western because I'm up in Montana. I've been here for a while now, and everything comes out country now. But what was interesting when I read your bio and what you're doing and about your hearing condition, I've always taken my ears for granted. To be honest with you. And I raced cars for 13 years, off-road, what they call spec trophy trucks. It's basically a NASCAR in the dirt. Very, very, very loud vehicle inside the car, even with the helmet, earplugs. However, the earplugs are pumping in the voice of our mechanic or my navigator, so they're yelling over the top of the motor. And, I'd always come home from these races and like, wow, my ears are hurting for days. And I still took them for granted until last year or 2 years ago. We were out at the shooting range, and I was done shooting, and a guy showed up with something rather significant, and we were really observant of what he had. And finally he goes, "Hey, you want to shoot this thing?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome." I did not even think about it. I walked over, pulled the trigger, forgot to put my earplugs back in. And man, my ears rang for 6 months. I thought, they're done. My ears are done. So you struck a chord here. They feel okay now. I don't know. I haven't had my hearing tested. They feel okay now. But you struck a chord with me with what you're doing with Melody Clouds. And I want to hear all about Melody Clouds and what you're doing and why you started and the condition that you have. But can you just back up a little bit for us and give us some background on yourself and where your business life started or what was life like before all of this?
Well, thanks for asking me. I grew up in Cut and Shoot, Texas. So it's a small town outside of Conroe, which is a small town outside of Houston. And went to cooking school after high school, realized that I did not like people sweating in my food, trying to teach me to cook.
Yeah.
So I got, and joined the Army. My older brother had joined the Army, and I thought it'd be a good thing to do. Had a blast. I got to go to 19 different countries, and it was amazing. Got out. I've written 6 books on mortgage and credit, and the most of my working life was spent in that industry until the mortgage crash. I didn't really agree with how we were handling credit and how we were handling mortgage in the United States, and I didn't feel right about it. So I went into SEO, search engine optimization.
Yep.
All right. Well, that in turn led me to kind of discover one day that, I'll tell you what. So I went to the VA hospital and they asked me for a blood sample. They wanted to do some DNA testing on soldiers from my era.
Mm-hmm.
And being the generous and giving person,
Patriot.
I thought maybe they want to create a super soldier out of me or something. I don't know. I went, and while I was giving the DNA sample in the blood, the woman that was helping me, she said, "Wayne, when's the last time you had a hearing test?" And I was kind of taken aback. I thought I heard everything she said. I had no idea why she would ask me something like that. So she grabs me by the hand and leads me down the hall to the audiologist.
Mm-hmm.
She puts me in a booth. They do the hearing test. She opens the booth, just rolling. She is absolutely laughing. She's like, "Hey, dude, you are deaf." And she goes, "I knew you were deaf before I ever put you in the booth."
Uh-huh.
And I was like, "Wow, that's interesting. How?" And she says, "Because you look at my mouth and read my lips, and you haven't once looked at my chest." I was like, "Man, that is very observant." I said, "They're lovely, by the way, but that is crazy." So they gave me hearing aids, and that started me really figuring out and noticing what she was telling me about. I have a condition called tinnitus.
Mm-hmm.
And my tinnitus is bad. I mean, it's pretty bad. And to let you know how bad that condition can be, and to let every one of the people listening to this know how much they need to protect their hearing, the CEO of Texas Roadhouse, former CEO of Texas Roadhouse, actually, it's been widely reported, so I'm not, stepping out of bounds here, widely reporting that he committed suicide because of his tinnitus. It was just that bad. And what tinnitus is, for anyone that's listening, is a ringing or whooshing or a noise that just does not go away. And so you're left when it's an otherwise quiet room, it's not quiet for you.
Yeah.
All right. So that led me to melody clouds. And I was messing around on the internet one day and was talking to a friend of mine, and I found a frequency, and it's a solfeggio. And what a solfeggio is a frequency that your brain operates at with different moods. And I found one that would actually give me silence for the first time in like 20 years. And when you hear silence for the first time in years, you really notice it.
And by the way, you said when you walk in a room and it's quiet, but it's not quiet for you. That applies to trying to go to sleep too.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to go to sleep, or to, even when you're trying to hear someone, my wife gets very frustrated with me because she doesn't like, talking loud. She's most of the time, a relatively quiet woman,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's exhausting for her to speak at a higher volume. And a lot of people around me know that I speak at a pretty high volume, and look, I'm not yelling at you. I need to speak up over this ringing in my ear.
Right. So yeah.
Go ahead.
Continue with your story, because I always take people back. So you go ahead.
You mentioned sleep. So there are solfeggio frequencies and binaural beats, by the way. We can get into binaural beats, but there are solfeggio frequencies that will cause your brain to mimic REM sleep. So you're laying there, your thoughts are racing, you hear this, tinnitus in your ear, whatever's going on. Play this music and it will drop you like a sack of potatoes. Most people. Now, look, like any other thing, not everyone responds to the same thing. But the good news is there's no medication involved. There's no addiction to that medication involved. There are no side effects to listening to music. Side effects to listening to music are a change in mood, which is why we have the tagline, take charge of your mood. That's melody clouds, take charge of your mood. Well, you can't. You can actually physically, whether it's grief, whether it's anger, whether it's loss of focus, you can actually affect all of those things with solfeggio or binaural beats.
Wow. Yeah, I love the mood effects. You know, I watched one speech on TV last night and I turned red. I like, where's my music at? I gotta change my mood.
Right. Well, every movie that has ever been made, with the exception, I think we were talking about this before, with the exception of 12, have a soundtrack for exactly that reason. Television shows, movies. They will not release a movie without a soundtrack, as Alfred Hitchcock found out. The Birds, when he released The Birds, the movie studio went, no, that doesn't have a soundtrack. You need to put some music on there. And his argument that he won the argument, so it's one of the 12, was that the soundtrack was actually the silences and the noise of the birds, and it added to the movie. It made people even more uneasy that the music they expected to hear was absent.
Wow. Yeah,
very interesting story, by the way. So if you ever get a chance, it's really cool story.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. You go into a church, or let's say that you go into a church and you hear organ music. You hear deep, somber organ music. So your mood naturally will go to a reverential mood. You're contemplative. You're okay. Well, you take that same individual and you push them through the doors of a church in the South, a Baptist church in the South where they're singing praise music, and you cannot help but feel uplifted by that, regardless of what your religious affiliation is. That's beside the point. That music is designed, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. It's there to uplift you. The movie Wall-E, just for one more example, there was a movie about a robot called Wall-E. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Well, the movie studio, there was not one word spoken for the first hour and 20 some minutes into the movie. It was all images on a screen with this soundtrack. And they were shocked that even children, small children, paid attention, rapt attention to this little robot going all over, falling in love and having all these little foibles and all. They couldn't believe that people would follow the music instead of, being spoken to. So it's easier to have no dialogue in a movie than it is to not have music.
Wow. That explains why when I got the country on and I'm in my backyard, I wind up with a bottle of whiskey and a 6-pack of beer on the patio within a few minutes.
100%. Now, listen, for me, it's bluegrass. When banjo is playing, I cannot help but smile. If I'm in a bad mood, or if I'm in a kind of sour attitude, my wife will throw some either Zydeco or some bluegrass music in, and I'm a happy camper. So I get it, man. I totally understand.
How come we don't have a bigger narrative around the power of music? Because as you suggested, it's everywhere. It's in everything. You go to the mall, wherever there is music in our lives. How come we don't talk about the power and effects of it more often?
I get asked this question a lot, and it is a great question because, and I think I have the answer to it now after really putting my mind to it. So it is no secret. Every single one of us realizes that music affects us. And when there's something like that, we can be manipulated by it. So in other words, in your example, you go to the grocery store, there's a soundtrack playing behind you. It's to relax you, to calm you, and to help you make the decisions on whether you're buying groceries or whether you really need that sweater. Okay. And hopefully the music that they play, and not hopefully, believe me, a lot of money goes into what music to play to manipulate you into making more purchases. Okay. For the same reason that when you go to the gym, country music's probably not going to be your music of choice.
No.
For most of us, it is some kind of, metal or, if you want an intense workout, you're not going to play the blues. Okay. That's just not what's going to happen. You're going to go in with, some Black Sabbath, some AC/DC. You're going to really want to get that pumping. Okay. Everyone accepts that. And there's a good reason that we have hospitals for the very same reason. Think about this. So when someone is hurt or ill or injured, you don't just send them home. You don't just leave them on the side of the road to recover. That's a very bad plan. What you do is you put them in a very quiet, safe, warm place where they can be cared for. Their brain will then relax and be able to allocate resources toward healing. Mm-hmm. So every time I say that, it makes even more sense to me. You don't sit there and think about, hey, why did we, do those things? We just accept them as truth. And then once you think about it, you go, you know what, that makes a lot of sense.
So
what I did not,
yes.
One more thing. Sorry. What I did not know was about solfeggios and binaural beats. In the 11th century, there was a monk that really did the research on solfeggio frequencies. Really, basically his premise is that we operate on vibrations. We respond. And his proof of this, and it makes, again, a whole lot of sense. Every single person, maybe they don't know how to play an instrument, but when a guitar is not tuned. When you've heard a bad note. Every one of us knows that. Our brain has a reaction to that, and that's what spurs us into being adverse. No one likes to hear a singer who's off key. No one likes to listen to music where the piano is not tuned. So his research really made a lot of people start thinking about it. Then we lost all of his research. And in 1970, another doctor kind of picked up on that and took it much further, where we now know, look, brain waves operate at a certain frequency. And if you introduce a frequency that is different than the one that your brain is, so in other words, if you're feeling grief, give you a perfect example. You're going through a divorce, you're going through death in the family. We have music that will actually interrupt that grief and give you a respite. They use it to treat PTSD right now at a lot of hospitals. They're doing a lot of research about this, and it works. And again, it works without the need for medication. It works without the need for addictive, qualities of that medication. The same people, you can operate in the same parameters for just about everybody. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, I've had the opportunity to be around a number of really talented musicians in my life, but as it relates to this particular topic, my business partner at the time was Bill Walton, the NBA All-Star player. And people know Bill as somebody that spends a lot of time with the Grateful Dead. So we happened to be in San Francisco, and we went to go see Mickey Hart at his house. And if you don't know who Mickey Hart is, he's the drummer for the Grateful Dead, and very, very talented. But what was interesting about that visit is as we were talking to Mickey, he was working on a new project, which is exactly what you're talking about. And his project was vibrations. And he was recording vibrations of a beetle that was killing pine trees. Literally recording the vibrations of the beetle that was killing pine trees. And they found that if they recorded those and played those back, it actually killed the beetle. So they were solving the problem of these beetles that were eating the pine trees. And don't quote me 100%. I might be slightly off on the story. But the fascinating part was their ability to record the vibrations of the beetle and use it as a tool. And, if anybody knows the Grateful Dead, cannabis comes into conversation at some point or another. Mickey Hart says, I want to record the molecular vibration of a cannabis tree plant growing and create music from that beat. And he lost half the people in the room. And I'm looking at him going, wow, that is awesome, right?
That's correct.
But when you talk about vibration and the power of vibration, that story immediately came back to me because like, wow, there is something to the power of vibration and music that can be created from it.
Yeah, I have a very funny story for you.
Yes.
So I am the father of 3 girls. And, look, I'm a very proud father. My girls are absolutely drop dead gorgeous. And from time to time, they will bring a stinky boy to my home.
Mm-hmm.
As unwelcome as that is, it's one of those life things that you got to deal with. And my wife always tries to make fun of me. Well, in doing this research, I found that people at a certain age hear frequencies that basically they do not like. So I downloaded an app to my phone. And when I want these guys to go home, all I have to do is start playing frequencies for them. I can't hear, my wife can't hear, but they can hear. And let me tell you something, it works. They get out of my house so fast, it will make your head spin. And my wife and I will absolutely crack up laughing. They have no idea that I did it, but they know that all of a sudden this very, harsh sound started playing that frankly, I can't even hear.
Wow. That's interesting. Well, look, I've got 2 daughters, 6 and 8, so I'm going to keep that one in my back pocket till the.
I'm going to share. I'll share the app with you. You got to try it, man. It is hysterical.
Hey, do you think does music pick us, or do we pick music? In other words, how are we attracted to a certain genre of music?
I've given a lot of thought to this, and I do think that it is nurture more than it is nature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I grew up. My father played a lot of Marty Robbins. Okay, a lot of Johnny Cash, a lot of Hank Williams, and so that was my early upbringing. And to this day, I can zoom back in time, sitting in the front seat of my dad's pickup with him, driving down, farm roads in Texas, listening to Big Iron, or, listening to, Johnny Cash, Boy Named Sue. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have a very good acquaintance, Neil Bushnell, and he is doing some work with education and video games. He's the founder of Atari. And he's doing some work now on education with video games. And we got into this conversation because, people learn a certain way. And music and that really fit hand in glove. In other words, the same thing that makes us remember things and when we're at play, okay, are the same things that make us remember and, change our moods and affect us when we're listening to music. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I like to call them anchors. We have anchors in our life that bring us back, whether that's a smell or sound or visual. You can play that song, and like you said, you're rushing back in time to sit in the front seat of your dad's car. And I love anchors because, they can be used for good, like you talked about. If you're in a bad mood, you can pull that anchor in and, switch your mood. Or you're walking through the mall and you smell a perfume that brings back a great memory of maybe it's your grandma or the lunch lady or something.
Yeah. Right. They're doing a lot of work with dementia and Alzheimer's patients. And they have found that when they play music that those patients recognize, mm-hmm. they become lucid again. They will, they respond and they go back to the point where their brains were unaffected by that dementia or by that, Alzheimer's. And while it's not perfected yet, there's a lot of promise there when it comes to, helping people with those issues. And, they also talk about people who stutter, but they don't stutter when they're singing.
Right.
So there's got to be something, a kernel in there that, maybe we don't fully understand yet, but it is, let me just put it to you this way. It is definitely a field that a lot of people are studying right now. I meet a lot of people through Melody Clouds and we have these amazing conversations about that.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Let's talk a little bit more specifically about Melody Clouds before we wrap this thing up. I wrote this little note here because I'm drinking coffee and it's early morning still. But, in the afternoon, we all go to grab our afternoon jolt, whether it's coffee or, the sweet treat or something. Can music take the place of that? Can we get to jolt from the types of musics that you've got available on your site, because they'll alter your mood a bit? I mean, does that play a role?
100%. A lot of people have, told me that it helps with their overeating, for example, because, most of the time people are overeating because of some kind of guilt or stress in their life. And if you can kind of relax that, now it doesn't work the same way with everyone. I need to make sure that people understand.
Yeah.
If you're prescribed a certain medication, your doctor will monitor you over a period of time and find out, did that medication do what it was intended? And are you suffering from any side effects that were not intended? Okay. So it takes a little bit of manipulation. It takes a little bit of finding out what you respond to the best. But to answer your question, 100%, you're more relaxed. You're not as stressed. So therefore, the thought is that you're not eating as much, you're not taking in as much. Yeah. Or more to the point, and we're going to have a 10-part series for smoking cessation, weight loss, and public speaking. It tends to be very effective to relieve that anxiety for people who have to speak in public. Mm-hmm. But, that's not the only thing that Melody Clouds does. I'm happy to report that we just added our 17,000th audiobook.
Wow.
Some people like to read books. Other people like to be read too. We added 17,000 audiobooks in 46 languages. The website itself is translated into 212 languages right now. And I don't see any reason why we're going to stop there. It's very, we're growing quite a bit. I wanted to make an offer to anyone that, any one of your listeners. We are offering subscriptions. It's $2.99 for the first 60 days. If you decide that you want to become a subscriber, it's $5.99 after that. Mm-hmm. So it's about a third of what some of the other services, offer. And by the end of this month, we have an app, an iOS app and an Android app, which will contain all of the music that is on the main website. And if people have subscribed to the website, which we have right now, a little over 1,000 subscribers, they will also get the app, and it will not cost anything. So in other words, I'm not trying to sell anyone an app. What I'm trying to do is give them a subscription to kind of help their mood. That's it.
Love it. Love it. When I first saw your name come across and the opportunity to interview you, I went to the website, and you do have, you've got some free music you can listen to. And, I was trying to do my research, and I had that on for about, I think it's a 69-minute play track. And I was just listening. I thought, wow, what a fascinating, wonderful, I don't even want, it's not a distraction. It was just like an enhancement to the work that I was doing that afternoon. So I love what you're doing. You've got a beautiful website. It's broken out in categories. It says, how can we help you today, right? Relieve my grief or improve focus, all these things. I like that you can select what your needs are for the moment, because I might just put on metal when I need to relax a little bit,
right. And that would be a big, you would have the opposite effect.
Yeah.
One more thing I want to mention, if there are any new parents, this is something that I am extremely proud of because I just discovered it. So if there are any new parents that are listening, and your, sweet bundle of joy has not learned the art of self-soothing yet, we have 800 hours of lullabies on the website. Those lullabies are all cut into 20-hour tracks. Mm. Those tracks are 20 hours because when you put your baby down, they will inevitably, if they haven't learned how to self-soothe, babies wake up in the middle of the night. But if that music is still playing and they can still hear that soothing lullaby that put them to sleep in the first place, very quickly, they learn how to self-soothe, and you can get back to sleeping through the night. And it works. I mean, I have had so many people come to me and go, okay, dude, you are a stud. That is like, we were scared to death. We were never going to get to sleep again. And I was like, man, that's really cool to hear. Of everything else, that is one of my favorite, kind of anecdotes.
Yeah, I love that because we had, now my youngest is 6 years old, and you all go through that as parents, and we've heard the power of music. The problem is so many of the applications that are out there now. It says baby music, whatever. In the middle of that, inevitably there's something that comes on that's loud and disturbing. It's like, what were they thinking? Why did they put that in the track? The baby just woke
No
up.
idea.
So.
Yeah. Well, and that's one more thing I want to point out, that not one of my tracks, and there are tracks that are 230 minutes long. There are hours and hours and hours of music. I've got over 8,000 hours of music on here. What you will not hear or see on that site is an ad or a commercial. Those are two things that you will not. I'm trying to get people to relax.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get people to change their mood, not, to worsen it.
Yeah.
So that is something that you will never, ever see when it comes to Melody Clouds.
All right, Wayne, I got one last question for you. I'm interviewing you. I'm watching your mood. I can tell your energy and excitement. What soundtrack are you listening to?
So a number of them, actually, because every night I listen to my own, I'm my own. I will listen to anything that's on the sleep and relaxation. For me, I like the binaural beat, and I like frequency at like 823 tends to drop me. I mean, seriously, if I turn that on, you got about 10 seconds and I'm out. I mean, I'm the biggest advocate of that particular, but I also like some of the classic, music. So during the day, I will add a solfeggio or I'll add a binaural beat to, Minute Work, or Depeche Mode is my all-time favorite. I absolutely, love Depeche Mode. So yeah, there you go.
Well,
or any country.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to ask you another question, but I'll let you affirm what I'm going to say. And that is, if we can sleep better, if we can feel better, if we can enhance our mood for the better, we can be more successful, stronger people, healthier people, better parents, better friends, better relatives. And I just love that music can bring that to our lives. So I just appreciate what you're doing and the site that you
100%.
put together. I think you mentioned you just started this in June, so this is a new site.
Right. And the improvements every day. I mean, today, the main site that you're looking at, we're doing some improvements, every single day. It's been a great journey. I mean, I have had so much fun doing this, and the feedback that I'm getting has been, for the most part, positive. There are some growing pains that need to, be overcome.
Sure.
But, that's with anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Wayne, I want to just thank you for your time being on the show. We look forward to watching your site grow. And I will put the website in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, the website will be there in the show notes. And you can take Wayne up on his offer and get the app, start relaxing or enhancing your mood, sleeping better, all those great things that Wayne invented this site for. So thank you so much, Wayne.
Hey, thanks again, Jim. Appreciate it.